Hello and welcome back to the OTB channel. So you know I'm an Arch fan, you know I'm a tweaker, you know that I don't like things to be overly customised, and I would rather start off with a really clean, as close to vanilla as possible base. And I found myself asking the question recently, well, Manjaro has a tool that's meant to allow you to do that called Manjaro Architect. Why haven't you looked at that before? So today, that's what I'm going to do. See you after the intro. Okay, welcome back. So Manjaro Architect. I don't know why I've not looked at it before, if I'm honest. I've looked at, ArchFi and various other script-based Arch installers, and yet Manjaro Architect seems to have passed me by. And I think it's probably because you don't hear that much about it. But it's a Manjaro system that works off a TUI rather than a GUI, so it's in the terminal, and it allows you to configure a Manjaro system however you want it, which sounds great. So I thought, well, I've got to give it a try, haven't I? I mean, Manjaro, whether you love it or hate it, has been riding high on Distro Watch at number 2 for goodness knows how long. Not that Distro Watch, the league tables, are in any way, an indication of overall popularity, because they're just not. They're just about page hits. But I think in terms of an Arch-based distro, Manjaro is probably the most popular because it's the most user-friendly. So what's this Manjaro Architect all about? And is it worth looking at? So I've just done a little. I've just been playing with it, and I've just done an install with it. And what I would say before we go any further is, I'm your typical bloke, really. I don't read instructions, so I didn't really read anything about Manjaro Architect. I simply went to the Manjaro page. I downloaded the ISO. And things did not go well. I did eventually get things working, as you'll see, and I got a system up and running. The problems that I experienced were more to do with me not doing the research and a little bit of preparation before using it. But I always take the view that, hey, I'm going to download and try this. Many of you may do the same, and this will hopefully avoid you making some of the same mistakes that I did. But let's go across to the split screen and let's have a look at Manjaro's website. So here we have it. I just went over to Manjaro's main website, manjaro.org/download, and Get Architect is in the main list of distros there, so I could scroll up and it starts with XFCE, then gives you Plasma, then GNOME, then Architect. So it tells you set up and configure Manjaro in every detail using the command line. It comes with a TUI installer, which is all good, and allows total customization on your Manjaro installation, which I thought was great. So you can choose your kernel, you can choose which branch you're going to go on, stable, testing, or unstable. Choose your desktop environment, add any unconfigured desktop environment that you want, choose your shell, choose your graphic drivers, choose the additional packages that you want installed. Great, okay, all good. I quite fancied doing this because I wanted to see what I ended up with. So I downloaded the ISO, which was 700 and something megs, so not overly heavy by any stretch of the imagination. And it booted, and you log in with the username Manjaro and the password Manjaro, and you proceed as you're meant to proceed. And I found on the wiki page a set of instructions about how you go on, and essentially you log in, and then once you've logged in, you just type setup and you follow along. That's the theory. So the theory looks simple enough. You probably noticed, though, that it's 20.03, which I'm assuming is March 2020, this ISO. So I had kind of clocked that at the beginning, and I thought that's pretty old. And it turns out it's too old. It booted okay. I was able to log into it okay. I was able to update the Pacman keys okay. But as soon as I hit setup, it errored out. It had an error message. And I went on the web and I found a number of posts, some saying that I had to install something first to replace something that was old. So I did that. And it started again. And this time I managed to get the screen up in Manjaro Architect that asked me to, set my language, etc., etc. And it all seemed to be going as it should be until I got to partitioning. And unfortunately, Manjaro could not see the virtual hard drive at all. So without being able to partition, I couldn't get anywhere. So Manjaro, I need to say that if this is too old, this ISO, you need to remove it from your download section. Yes, I should have read up on that, and if I'd read some of the articles, I would have found out that this download is problematic. But unless it's updated, there's not much point having a standalone ISO. However, there is an alternative way of doing it. Download any Manjaro ISO that you want, and you will see on the desktop that there is a link to Manjaro Architect. So rather than launching Calamaris, you can just launch Architect and go through the process while you're in the live CD. It's still a TUI, it's not a GUI, but it does take you through the process, and this time it worked. So let's move over. I downloaded XFCE, the XFCE version of Manjaro, and you'll see how I got on. Right, so I've booted into the XFCE Manjaro ISO that I've downloaded. And it's booted fine. It's gone into full HD, which is brilliant. I quite like the look of that. I've not used the XFCE version of Manjaro before, but the purpose of this is not to double click on the install icon, but to actually go for Manjaro Architect. And you'll see that there is a link there on the desktop. Now, I've never used this before, and I probably should have done some preparation. I've not done a huge amount, but let me just make this full screen. And let's see what it does. It seems to be setting itself up now. Disabling keys, retrieving packages. And okay, it's gone straight through to select my language, and I'm going to select English. All checks passed, all good. It's now going to download the latest packages from the Manjaro repositories. Menu options, I can select by pressing the option number or the up and down keys. Yeah. Okay, prepare installation. So I presume this is where it's going to take me through partitioning the disk eventually. Set virtual console. So currently configured key map setting is US. So I do want to change that. I want UK, which is probably going to be all the way down at the bottom, I would imagine. So let's just go down there and see if we can find it. There we go. UK. List devices. Optional? Okay. So, fine. It spotted the VirtualBox hard drive. Just out of interest, I did try the ISO installer just for Manjaro Architect, and that was where it went all wrong. When I tried to list the devices, it couldn't find anything. So we're next on to partition disk. So devices are available. The first is SDA, the second SDB. Okay, so that's the one I want. What do I want to do? Do I want to securely wipe the device and set up for BIOS and UEFI? Automatic partitioning, BIOS and UEFI? Or do I want to use CF disk? Do you know, I'm going to try here and use automatic as far as possible to see how simple it is. So let's go for automatic partitioning. Okay, everything's going to be destroyed. That's fine. Off you go. And what's it done? It's created a 512 meg partition, and it looks to me like a root partition. So it may well have set this up in UEFI, potentially. But okay, RAID, I don't want to do that. LVM, I don't want to do that. LUKS encryption, don't want to do that, but it's good to have that as the option, as is ZFS. So I want to mount the partitions. Partitions can be mounted without formatting them by selecting the Do Not Format option. Okay, well, let's just click OK. Select root partition, so that's going to be that one. I want to format that with ext4. Yes. Use space to deselect the desired mount options. Okay, so no time is selected by default, which is good, especially if you're using an SSD, because it does limit the writes. Confirm the following mount options. No time. Yeah, all good. Mount successful. Right, so select the swap partition. So it's a swap partition, the 512 megs. Or is it? Swap file. No, it's not. It's just selecting everything. I'm going to go with no swap file. That's what I'm going to go with. Select additional partitions in any order or done to finish. I'm just going to select done to finish. I don't want to set up a UEFI partition at this stage. Not really, although I suppose... No, I've booted this in standard BIOS mode, so I'm just going to say standard done. Configure, install a mirror list. Well, let's just rank mirrors by speed. Let's just do it simple. We want stable, and it's going through its checks. Right, so it's finished this. I just paused that for a second, and it's gone through and it's done a speed test. I'm going to just select United Kingdom and set it to OK. I want to use those mirrors, absolutely. So, OK, we'll go back. Or refresh Pacman keys. OK, let's let it do its stuff. All good so far, just a little bit wary about that partitioning stage. So it's refreshing 146 keys, so all good so far. Right, so all the keys have been refreshed. Again, I just pause that very slightly, just to allow that to take place. Now, if we got choose Pacman cache, do you want to use the Pacman cache off the running system instead of the installation target? This can reduce the size of the required download in the installation. Yeah, why not? Enable FSCK hook. Do you want to use FSCK hook? Let's say yes. And back. Right, so we're now on to install a desktop system, which is what we want. You could install a CLI system or your own custom system, but let's go for the desktop system. What do I want to do? So install a Manjaro desktop. Okay. I want Linux LTS. I'm going to go for the LTS kernel. And choose a desktop environment. Well, I'm going to go for Mate. So you just hit the space bar. Okay, good. Would you like to add any additional packages to your installation? Let's say yes, and let's see what it comes up with. Choose any extra packages you'd like to add. Okay, press Tab to select multiple packages and proceed or quit with Enter. Okay, so let's move down. So Arch Linux keyring. What else do I want? Bash, I certainly want to install. Bin utils. And let me just work my way through here and choose a few bits and pieces. Quite interesting here, because although it's asking us to install a Manjaro desktop, I'm finding it quite confusing understanding what everything is here. So it really is quite fine grain. It even asks us if we want to install Grub or Grub Fedora. Right, I must admit I'm finding this part quite confusing because I'm not entirely sure what everything is. I would have thought installing a Mate desktop would have installed a lot of this by default, but no, everything is configurable, including sudo, and I can even choose to install systemd, which as far as I'm aware is required for the Mate desktop, but perhaps I'm wrong. Right, I've just unpaused this. I have to say I'm getting a bit bored now. Let's go for LibreOffice Fresh here. Okay, all good. I'm hitting the Tab key, and I suppose we should go for GB. There we are. And it seems to scroll forever. So we'll come back again in a minute. Right, so I'm beginning to think that I should have just said no to extra packages. I'm going to hit OK to come out of that. I think the thing is, if you are really certain about you only want very, very specific libraries installed, by all means, agree to install those additional packages. I tend to feel now, though, that it was the wrong choice to pick that. What I should have done is just say no to that, and then it goes on to full or minimal. So we're talking about Mate here. What do I want? Full. I'll let it do its thing, and then I shall go and do what I need to do after that. So full, this is obviously what it is. So I presumably write that out. And it's doing its thing. So let's see what happens once it's finished. Right, so the initial install seems to have more or less finished. We've now got to this display driver section. Do we want to auto-install free drivers or auto-install proprietary drivers? I'm going to select proprietary drivers here simply because we're on VirtualBox. And it says successfully installed video virtual machine. So great. All done. Now install the bootloader. What do we want? Grub or Grub plus OS Prober? Well, this is a virtual machine, so it doesn't need to detect any other operating systems. So we'll just go for Grub. And yes, I do want it installed on dev SDA to the master boot record. This may fail on some machines running a custom kernel. Right, okay, but it seems to have worked for me. Configure the base. Right, so generate an fstab. So by UUID or name, let's do it by UUID. Set a host name. We'll stick with the default, hey, Manjaro. Set system locale. Right, so there we go. On GB. Right, okay. Set desktop keyboard layout. Okay, so is this GB or is it UK? I can never remember, to be honest. There Let's just see if there's a UK there. I have a feeling it's actually GB, this one. The terminal is UK, but for the desktop environment, it's GB. Right, there we go, GB. Set time, zone and clock. Okay, Europe and London, even though I'm nowhere near London. There we go, London. Set time zone, Europe, London, yes please. And do I want it in UTC or local time? Let's keep it as UTC. Set root password, okay. Enter again. Add a new user. Okay, OTB. Oh, I want bash, please. Thank you. Password for OTB. And it's creating the user and setting groups. And we move back. Right, system tweaks. What does this involve? Do we want to enable automatic login, enable hibernation? No, I don't want any of those things. What about performance? I/O schedulers. I'm just going to leave that as is. Swap configuration. Swappiness set to 10. Okay, that's not bad. We'll save that and come out of that. Preload, I don't want to do that. Let's go back. Security and system D tweaks. No, I don't think I want to do any of that at this stage. So let's go back. Review configuration files. I don't even think I want to do that, but let's see what it gives us the opportunity to do. Okay, so pretty good. I like the fact that it gives you that opportunity. Shroot into the installation. Why not? Let's just see. So I'm now shrooted in. I want to see how it's set up these partitions. Interestingly, it seems to have set up SDA1 as the booting partition. I don't know if that will work, but that's flagged as boot. I didn't set SDA1 to anything, so we'll see. But let's just exit out of here, and that should take us back. Right, we're getting a bit of interference here. Interesting. Perhaps if we say done. I'm not sure what the flashing screen is all about here. I can't seem to click done. Okay, well, the only thing I can do is come out. Close window. And let's see where we're up to. Well, the good news is, and I was a little bit worried whether this would work, it has actually booted. And you can see what it's booted into. So let's just make sure that if I can log in, where we get to, and I'm hoping to see a nice Mate desktop here. And phew, I have indeed got a Mate desktop. So it wasn't problem free. I'm not sure why it completely struggled. What have we actually got in the menu here? Have we actually got? We have got LibreOffice. That's great. I don't know what we've got in other. HP scan, admin, accessories, sound and video. VLC's there already. It seems to have done it. Amazing. And if I bring up a terminal, so there's the Mate terminal, I presume now if I go in for sudo pacman syu, it should be fully updated. And it is, and sudo is indeed configured out of the box. Right, okay, so despite the fact of me not feeling that it might have done it, it seems to have figured itself out. So all good, let's go and have a chat. Right, so that's Manjaro Architect. You'll have noticed I've now corrected the, where are we? The spelling of Manjaro here. I only noticed this after I'd already recorded the rest. So, hey, mistakes happen. I leave them in. So what did I think? Well, some lessons learned. If you're going to use Manjaro Architect, don't download the ISO. Just download any of the other ISOs and use it from there. It has some advantages. You can customize your installation as much as you want to do. I think if I was to use it again, I wouldn't go for the automatic partitioning. I would do the partitioning myself before I even launched it. I didn't quite understand why it had created that additional 512 meg partition as well as my root partition, as I wasn't actually doing a UEFI system. But I suppose it was to account for the fact that that might be something that you wanted to do. But it worked. It booted. And up until the point where I made the decision to install additional packages, and it just went through loads and loads of libraries, which some of them I didn't know what they did, and I think that would just confuse the heck out of you. And in future, I would just say no to that and go for the standard Mate install, either a minimal Mate install or the full install. I did end up, though, while I was choosing additional packages, choosing all the Manjaro customizations, which I didn't have to do, and presumably I could have ended up with a vanilla Mate if I'd wished to do that, but I just wanted to see how it worked. So it does work. It does get you a customized system. It does give you an up-to-date system because it's essentially a net install. Would I use it? Well, to install Manjaro, I think personally I'd just go for the standard Mate install rather than going through the Architect. Probably quicker just to remove the programs that I don't want than it took me to actually go through the Architect. But I also feel that, if you're looking for a vanilla Arch install, that takes less time than the Architect does, to be honest. And I think that's probably a lot more straightforward. Compared to other similar TUI installs or script-based installs, I think I also need to give a big shout out to Esnix. I'm sure most of you follow his channel, and he's constantly working on his Easy Archer ISO. And what I love about that, I perhaps should have showcased that, and I need to do that. in the coming weeks. You boot his live ISO, and you have a choice of 3 different installation methods. You can just do a Calamaris install and get a standard desktop, which I believe is Mate now, or you can run one of his scripts and you can edit the script beforehand to get a customized install just as you want it, or you can open a terminal on the live system and follow his My Way Arch install and get the very, very traditional Arch installation. So it gives you more choices. I appreciate the fact that Manjaro Architect, now that it's combined with all the other ISOs, gives you a choice when you download an ISO. But I don't know. I just feel that, is there a need for it with Manjaro? If you want Manjaro, don't you want the customizations that Manjaro offers? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just me not seeing it. As far as the installer is concerned, and apart from my mistakes, great, but Manjaro, you need to remove that ISO. Right, guys, there isn't going to be a video for the next week or two. I'm taking a little bit of a holiday. We're coming up, we're only a couple of months off 2 years, and I've pretty much produced a video every single Saturday. And I've got quite a few projects that I want to do on Raspberry Pis, and I want to have a bit of a play. So I'm going to put some time aside just for the next 2 weeks. It's temporary. I will be back. It's been prompted as much as anything else that next weekend I'm due to get the jab. And quite a few of my friends and colleagues who've had the jab appear to have a day or two where they feel pretty rough. So I'm preempting it as much as anything else. I'm probably not going to be feeling on top form anyway. So it's time to take a little bit of a minor break where I can play with some stuff and then come back and show you what I've played with. So I hope you enjoyed today. This really was me playing with no preparation. Should have done the preparation really, but I didn't. So I'd just like to say, hope you enjoyed it anyway. Come and join me on the Facebook group. Certainly come and join me on Library. Oh, and by the way, while I'm here, if I can say hello and thank you to my Patreons, Robert, Gary, Aristotelis, Stormpick, Stephen, Mike, David Bird, Richard Wade, Tiger, Forrest, Patrick, Glenn, Magnus, Skipper and John M. Thank you guys. Your support has helped a lot. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I'll see you in a week or two.